So, as many of you know, I've been living in Mexico for quite some time, and I've always had this idea of going back to the States and eventually being a Spanish teacher, a Spanish professor, because I am a teacher here. I've been an English professor, and I love transmitting my knowledge of English, and I wanted to do the same in Spanish, but back home. But I've been having some second doubts, and um, Steve Kauffman's coming into mind these days more than ever. Anyway, I'm Mark. If you guys don't know me, this is Language Come Up, and so just getting right back into it. You know, I've had this YouTube channel for a couple months now, and for me, it has it's a subscriber short of 300, and for me, I'm really happy that I'm growing this audience slowly but surely, and I've been listening to some more things basically about how how to create a channel, the future of technology, and right now I'm at this crossroads because I do like being an English teacher, and I think that what a perfect profession for me to be a Spanish teacher back home. But the words of Steve Kauffmann are coming back into my mind, and I remember watching. Well, he has a lot of videos of it. He talks about how the classroom is not the ideal place for the language learner, and I've heard those words from him throughout the year. I'm a big Steve Kauffman fan, by the way, and while to an extent I agreed with him, I just felt that, well, I'm a good teacher. I can inspire students, and I'm not going to be like those other boring teachers. I really have a nice foundation in methodology. I think I'm a fairly um, enthusiastic guy about what I like, which is languages. I think that I can try my hand at inspiring more students. But watching some things basically about how the future will be. For example, I heard one thing from I like Gary Vee a lot. He's a cool guy, and he talks about like we're living this transition, and how basically the new television is our cell phone. And of course, to some people that may be obvious, but um, put in those words really made me start to think. And there's some people, he talked about how a long time ago, like the radio personalities didn't even want to get into TV because they kind of almost looked down on it. And I don't want to look down on what's to come, right? So I really want to inspire people to learn languages, and if I were to choose one to inspire the people with, it would be Spanish, because I have a close personal relationship, well, ties with this language. My father was from Mexico, and I love the idea of being able to inspire people with his language. Um, but you know, video is such an important part of our life now, and it will be in the future. So, if I can find a way to kind of inspire lots of people through other ways outside of being in the classroom, I kind of like the idea. And more than ever, I feel like maybe it's not a good idea to even go down this road because, look, it costs a lot of money to get a master's degree to be able to teach in university. And I thought, okay, what should I do? Should I go to high school and teach, or should I go to university and teach? And I think that you can create more change if you're a high school teacher because, many of the students will be thinking of what they want to study. They could choose Spanish as a major, but at the same time, I thought, well, the pay in university is a bit better. Maybe I could still try my hand at inspiring the students that I could get in front of. So I had the idea to be a university professor, but we know college in America is super expensive. I still owe money on my bachelor's degree, and basically to even do the master's degree, I would have to save quite a long time. I don't know if I could work part-time and study, or how that would even be, but I know it would be kind of difficult. But of course, still manageable. I'm a dedicated person. I could still, I could still go at it. But I'm just really just trying to think of the future, man. I like, I'm thinking what life will be like for me in my 50s and my 60s. What would I like to do, right? And I have these ideas to maybe open a school for small students, for kids to learn Spanish, or even to come back to Mexico to open some kind of foundation where, um, let's say, students who don't have the means can learn English. And basically, I have to think, how can I get to a point where I can do all those things? And it's like hustling in my 40s. So I'm having all these ideas that are just brewing around, and I'm really at this crossroads. But right now, I'm almost kind of leaning not to do the master's route to be a Spanish professor, and to go at this whole situation a whole nother way, you know. So that's where I am about that. So it's a very new thing that I'm playing with, because I've had this idea of doing this one thing for quite a long time. All right, so I got a question from a subscriber, and I just was going to answer that right now. All right. So his question was, he says, "Hey man, love your vids. I was just wondering if you ever thought about doing a video on being a language teacher and how it plays into your own language learning experience." All right, well, thank you, Turjay. Anyway, so right now I'm an online teacher, but before I did classes in language schools, um, many businesses, and I even was a university teacher for a period of time. And this is kind of going back to the original point, that I know that the classroom is not the best way for students to learn. So all that I try to do is to energize a class, to inspire them, and to give it right back to them so they can have time using the language. But so I can't really say that teaching has inspired me as a language learner, but now that I'm doing online classes, my language learning style is really reflecting in how I talk to my students, Inputs heavy, listen, read, watch, learn grammar through your inputs, right? And most of my students have taken to this. Of course, it's hard to get the idea home to everyone, because we're raised with this idea of how we learn languages, how we learn them in school, which wasn't very effective. And I've always been of the mindset to not be like that. So at this university that I taught at, it was very famous for being grammar heavy. And then when I got in there, I just did what I always did and tried to motivate, have the students use the language, and do my best to help them with anything that they needed. And I would always hear the teachers from the other room, they would be lecturing grammar and all that, and, well, didn't want to do that. All right, so another thing that I've kind of had in mind lately is the idea of genetics and how it plays into our roles as language learners, right? So language learning, I always thought kind of was my thing, because I moved to Mexico, I started learning Spanish, I started having all these great experiences, and I realized this is something I really like. And I really thought that it was something original to my experience, right? But these days I've thought not so much. Well, my dad originally was from Mexico, and my uncle's telling me that he just studied English with a passion. He really loved English, and he lived in France for a time, so of course he spoke French, and he told me he studied Italian. So even before I was interested in language, my father had this interest, of course, and my mom even studied to be a Spanish teacher, so she speaks Spanish and all that. Um, in fact, she used to tell me to be a Spanish teacher, but of course, at the time, you know, of course, I wasn't going to listen. You needed to have my own experience. But there you go. So yeah, I'm really wondering how much how much is my love for languages, the product of my own experience, and how much is it the fact that I've got it in my DNA, in essence. I don't know. What do you guys think? I even have an uncle who's a linguist. I never put all these things together until way late. So, what about you guys? Um, is language learning something individual to you, or do you have this kind of interest floating through your family? I know Elysse from Elysse Speaks. Her mom loves languages. She has sisters that speaks languages. She's a wonderful polyglot. It's kind of interesting thing to ponder. All right, so other than that, I want to just talk a little bit about how my study week went in this last week. So 2 weeks ago, I wasn't having such a full schedule in my online classes like normal, so that week was kind of tough for my language learning. Last week, it kind of stabilized a bit, but not 100%. So just in that, I think my work is the base of all my schedule. So when I have that in place, typically the other things go in place as well. If you follow me on Twitter, then I said this thing where I didn't want to drink any beers on Thursday because I've had this kind of just like a routine. It's basically been our tradition for a little bit over a year, where last year I would go out for tacos at a place around the corner, have a few beers, and now that I'm here, I really don't go out too much because of coronavirus, but I still was drinking those beers, so I figured it's not necessary. It can wait till the weekend. I could use those 2 hours to be quite productive. And, because as soon as I have a beer, it's like I'm in chill mode, so it's better just to wait a little longer. I did read a pretty cool story from my little tale of Russian children's tales or whatever. And I hadn't read one for a while, but it was pretty cool, but I realized it seemed kind of short, to the point, but short. And I checked online, and there actually is a way long version of that same story, so I'm gonna have to read that. But anyway, how have things with your language learning been going? Tell me. Everything cool? How's it been? This week I expect to get even more so on track than the previous week, so getting everything back in order. And yeah, I'm happy. Everything's going great. So yeah. All right, so that's all. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you like this video. And if you want, you can follow me on social media. Language Come Up on Twitter and Instagram. So how's everything been going? Tell me. And if you have any questions about anything you want me to answer, please go right ahead. I'd love to take a look at some of them and even answer some of them on here. All right, so we'll see you next time, and have a good one.